Morning. Happy Tuesday, floralpreneurs. Here we are, back again for Tuesday Q&A, my new favorite day of the week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching on the replays. If you're a replay person, I'm happy to have you watching too. Not everything is easy to attend live, but I do these live because it's a little bit more energy for me than just recording something where I can stop and re-record or change something. This just feels a little, I don't know, more fun, more exciting. So welcome, floralpreneurs. Thank you for being here. As always, I am Alison, Ellis of realflowerbusiness.com. And I'm going to answer a few questions that came through this week. And what we're going to do is really just get to one of the questions that seems like a little question, but feels like a bigger question. It's about AI. But I also want to just start by telling you a little bit about why I'm doing these chats every week, especially if this is your first time tuning in. There's just a lot of kind of loosey-goosey information out there. And there are a lot of people who are teaching florists who themselves don't have a ton of experience, to be honest. And maybe what they're teaching is really helpful for beginners, but they're only like one step ahead of the student, right? There's a lot of teachers who do that, by the way. It's like a method of teaching, believe it or not. If you stay one lesson ahead of your student, you can kind of trick them for a while. But business is super nuanced, and there are a lot of floral educators who've been doing this for a long time, but they're not actually dealing in the current market, which is really different than the market years ago in every way, whether you have retail, farm stand, weddings and events, corporate work. Things are just like a little different than they were 7 years ago, 8 years ago. And we have to be ready to adapt. And it's hard to follow lessons that were 7 or 8 years old and really have them work today. So we have to stay current is my point. And you want to make sure that you're trusting people who really do have your best interest in mind, not just their own, which is why I want to also bring up the panderers out there. This is just part of posting on social media. So it's not like a dig at anybody in particular, but there are a lot of posts that are like, hey, don't you know that being a florist is like the most noble job in the world, and you are basically a saint for doing this? And you work so much harder than every other business owner, somebody who owns a bakery or a photographer, right? This is just part of like catching your attention and clickbait stuff. And again, that's super not what I want to do, because it really takes your voice and it turns it into clickbait. And I don't want to run my business like that, right? So the panderers, the newbies, the floral educators who haven't actually been dealing with customers, they might all have something to offer. And I want you to just be really mindful about what you're listening to, right? Who are we paying attention to? And are we feeling like this works for us? Okay? Because what works for somebody else doesn't have to work for you. Every business is unique. And again, nuanced. There's so much nuance. All right. So off my soapbox on why I'm doing this and why I'm inviting you to these chats. But here's what I want to start with. A question that seems like a little question, but kind of is a big question on AI. So somebody asked a question. If a customer is sending you images that are AI, the way they worded the question was, do you honor these images? So I don't know exactly what they mean by honor these images. Like, can we say we can replicate them is what I'm assuming it means. And the truth is, this is just going to be the way things are from now on. All right. So we got to buckle up and get ready for people to be sending us AI images like all the time. Now, some of them are going to be ridiculous, right? There's an image that maybe you've seen. It was kind of out early in the AI stuff, where it's like this cascading bouquet, of amaranthus, not amaranthus, of amaryllis and tulips, but the amaryllis and the tulips are like melded like they are one flower. Great example of an AI image that no, you cannot say you can do that because that flower doesn't exist, right? It's an amaryllis tulip mashup and you can't necessarily do that. But what can you do? So what can you take? What useful information can you take from that AI image and use? So this is a mixture of amaryllis and tulips. These are not necessarily going to be the best choice, but I could do something similar to this. Maybe we add roses, maybe we add callas, right? Maybe there's something you can do to take that artificial design and make it a reality. Here's another example I want to give you. I had a very super small wedding. They were having super small wedding. She wasn't even sure if she wanted to do flowers on the table, which I'm holding out like she's going to come around. I know she'll come around. We could just do bud vases. It could be something very simple. When we finally talked for like our little follow-up, she said, I made this image on AI. I had AI make this image because I had something in my mind and this is what it spit out. And it was honestly totally acceptable. It was nothing fancy. Again, small wedding, little slab of wood, little table number, little floral accent, a couple candles. You know where I'm going with this. You can imagine it, right? Would I need AI to create that image for me to know how to do a really inexpensive little centerpiece like that? No, but the customer might. And so when she brought it to me and she really liked it, instead of me just being like, yeah, no, duh, that's so easy, right? I went, that's really nice. We could do something like that. Maybe even like a little nicer, right? We'll put a different flower up higher and then a little flower down lower. But I'm not here to lie to you. AI is where she got that inspiration. Because I don't have images like that on my website, right? Where I've got kind of like tchotchke centerpieces too much. Again, I'm not trying to diss the tchotchke centerpiece. It was cute. She had it was very thought out. It was very them and very thought out. But it wasn't something that she pictured in her mind. AI helped create it for her. So yes, I will honor that, right? I will honor that. And it's really a conversation. So if you happen to see last week's Q&A, and if you didn't, go back and watch it, we talked a little bit about exclusivity clauses. So it's this idea that what if I show up to a wedding and there's other people's bud vases on the bar or wherever they may be? Should I add a clause to my contract that says that's not allowed, you cannot have outside flowers? So similar to that idea, the question about should I honor AI was do I need to add a clause to my contract about this? And I'm going to give a very similar answer to last week on the exclusivity clause. This is a conversation because you can put something in your contract, but you can't assume your customer has actually read it, processed it, and understands it. Okay? It doesn't mean you shouldn't have it in there. It's just we can't assume that they know whatever your clause is on AI. So you might as well just have the conversation. Just like having a conversation around how you prefer to be the only florist who's providing flowers to keep the event cohesive and beautiful and to the client's standards, as well as your own, but it's the client that you're doing this for. That's a conversation because that is where we can have a meeting of the minds even more clearly than, hey, look, it was in your contract. I put in your contract XYZ, right? What would we even say in our contract about AI? We will not work with AI images. Well, good luck with that in year 2, 3, 4 years down the road, right? Who knows where this thing is going? So I would just be open to having conversations with people and saying this is AI. It's really not all that different, to be honest, than I would say for the last 5 years at least, this huge influx of people constantly bringing us fake flower images as if they are real and saying they would like this. Because one of these companies, right, one of the faux flower companies, pumped out a ton of content on Pinterest. And so it's viral and people are constantly sending you, I know it happens to me, fake bouquets, and they love this and they love that and they love this. And like most of them are fake. Okay, maybe not most of them, but the ones they like best are fake. So we're using that as a jumping off point, knowing that it's not fully attainable in real life. Okay, so I would use the same kind of approach to that. I'm not going to add a clause to my contract that says we cannot imitate fake flower images that you bring to us, because they won't even know that they're doing that. Just like after they sign the contract with you and then they continue their planning process, they may bring you images and they may be AI. Again, it will be a conversation. So I think that's all I need to say about that. If it's something that's close enough to reality, just like with the faux flowers, hey, those are faux, but I can create something really similar to that. The only thing we don't have is like that greenery doesn't exist, right? Something like that. So you can do a similar thing with AI. But AI is here to stay, whether we like it or not. It is being like thrust upon us, right? So whether it's inevitable or it will be inevitable because everyone told us it would be inevitable, so we're making it inevitable. I don't know, kind of meta. That is just something where we're gonna have to have conversations about it. And it's not like coming for your job because you're gonna be the one who knows the difference between what's real and what's not. And you're gonna know what's a great substitute for that not real option. All right. So that's that. You can honor them to the degree that you would any inspiration image. It's a jumping off point, but I can't necessarily mimic it perfectly. All right. So, and I really, really appreciate that question because I think it's a big one. We're going to just be getting more and more and more AI coming at us. All right, then I had a question in my Facebook group about transporting cascade bouquets. So I know this isn't a business question, but guess what? I don't just do business. I also do flowers. So this is a good question. Again, it seems like kind of basic. How do I transport a bouquet? But it's not. It's really nuanced. So cascade bouquets are not like my number one bouquet that I sell or deliver, but over the years, every time that I have made a cascade bouquet, delivering it is a little bit of a reinvention because maybe the bouquet sits in water and it can sit in a vase, but the vase will tip over because of the cascade weight. And so you need to secure that vase in a box, and then you need to put some kind of cushioning, right? Tissue paper. A lot of times I will reuse bubble wrap. You know, you get Christmas presents or whatever, something in the mail. You've got that bubble wrap. Save it for that sort of a thing. And you can prop up flowers. You need to kind of, again, jimmy rig these things. So sometimes you're going to deliver it in water, in a vase, and just kind of have it sitting back because it's going to lean forward. You have it kind of sitting back and like secured somehow. Then there will be times where you might just have the whole thing in a hydration chamber. So maybe you have a gigantic bag. Maybe you have a, I don't know why it has to be gigantic, but it's not a corsage bag, right? It's a big bag that goes around. It could be a big container, like a big sealable container that you can lock the top on. And maybe you bring it in that hydration chamber. So it's not in water, but it has been hydrated from the outside overnight, 24 hours, however long you leave it in there, so that it is just like when you do a corsage or a boutonniere in a hydration chamber, it's ready to last all day, even though it hasn't been drinking water. So it's going to depend on what you have in this bouquet too, right? So some things are just more delicate than others. And whatever method you choose, just know there isn't one right way to transport a cascade bouquet. So you're going to be figuring it out each time based on that particular bouquet. So if you feel like, geez, I should have this figured out by now, don't worry about that because there isn't just like, here's the one way. Couple things I've done though. Sometimes I'll just use like a short bucket and I'll put the bouquet in there so that it doesn't tip over, right? But I can't hand it to my customer like that. So I have to have a plan of how is this bouquet going to then be presented to the client? Because there's transport and then there's how do they keep this bouquet from getting all smashed around through having their makeup finished, getting dressed, having the first look photos or group photos, whatever they're doing. How do we keep it until it's getting picked up and carried down the aisle? And again, that might be something where you have just like a nice little box, little tissue paper, and you have a place to lay it down. Not everything, I know people sometimes get really obsessed with how pretty things can be when we deliver them. And I'm not going to lie, I am not really obsessed with pretty packaging. I think the flowers speak for themselves. So sometimes when we deliver a cascade bouquet, it's not going to have your perfect packaging because it needs something a little different to just, again, keep it upright until it's able to be in its full cascade glory. So lots of different ways you can do that. Sometimes even just taping a grid on the bucket can be a game changer in terms of just keeping that bouquet from rattling around. But yeah, there isn't like a here's the one size fits all answer. And I do hope that helps for people who maybe you haven't made a cascade bouquet before, but you know you will be making one and you hadn't thought about transporting it yet. So it's always a little bit of an adventure. All right. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's very figure outable. All right. One of my favorite people that I ever worked with, Teresa, said to me early on when I started working with her, florists are the original cob jobbers. We can figure out anything. And it's so true. The amount of times, you know, MacGyver gets a lot of credit, right? Of course, it made me think of MacGruber, but MacGyver, right? He could make anything out of anything. That's us, right? We are the MacGyvers. We can take something and turn it into what it was not meant to be and make it beautiful. So same thing when it comes to packaging or any of these things. You can figure this stuff out. Don't get discouraged. Okay, so that was that. And then there was a great question about one of my faves, amaranthus. So not the amaryllis that I mentioned before with the AI images, but amaranthus, hanging amaranthus. This florist got these beautiful, I mean, you dream of getting amaranthus this gorgeous and long, but it's actually kind of too beautiful and too long. She needs shorter pieces. And the question was, can I just like wire these? And the answer is yes, right? There's almost, I'm gonna regret this, but there's almost nothing that you can't wire somehow and make it do what you want to do. Again, you're a MacGyver. Our job is to take something and manipulate it. We take nature and we bend it. We take nature and we extend it. So what we want to do with something, whether it's amaranthus or anything where you need a piece of it, you know, something else that I love to wire are gladiolas. You know, you think of gladiolas as a sword flower. They're upright, you know, they're for graduations and funerals and, you know, making a big arrangement. But they're so beautiful when we take them off and we wire them individually. So thinking about the product and how you can, again, manipulate it to do what you want it to do, always feel free, like you can experiment. It's great to be able to like come to my Facebook group or someplace and just ask a question like, hey, what would you do? And get some answers. But really make sure that you experiment too. Don't feel like you have to wait for the answers. Go ahead and give it a try. See what happens. Because the truth is, with something like amaranthus, it's going to be a little bit of a success story and then sometimes a failure because especially if you want those ends, the ends start to dry out before the rest of the plant. So you will, perhaps, if you wire it, start to see it fading, which is why we need proper techniques. So making sure that we're wiring it like on the right day, making, for example, not on a Wednesday for a Saturday wedding. We want to make sure that we're checking it. Maybe we have some extra pieces that we could wire last minute if those pieces fail. Because if you haven't actually done it yourself, even if I say to you, you can do it, you don't know exactly how that works. So for example, you could have it in a hydration chamber and it might be thrilled. Or you could have it in a hydration chamber and it could kind of maybe get a little too wet. Who knows? I haven't actually done it myself. So while I can sit here and, people in the comment thread can go, yeah, you can do that. Just cut it, wire it, no problem. I do it all the time. It's going to really depend on a bunch of things. How old your amaranthus is, how long you're trying to hold it, and then the way that you're holding it. It might be better just in the cooler than in a hydration chamber. I'm speculating. I'm not saying that I know that. But when we have something that's kind of spongy, I wouldn't necessarily describe amaranthus as spongy, but if we're talking hydration chamber, that could soak up water. So I would be just on the lookout for, is my amaranthus getting a little too hydrated? And it might just depend on the amount of time, how long you've had it in the hydration chamber, how long you've been doing that for. So I wanted to mention that one because it feels kind of obvious. Like, yeah, of course you could just pinch the tips and wire it. But we need reassurance sometimes, right? We need to go, am I having a good idea here, or am I doing something that's a little strange? And you know what? It's okay to do things that are a little strange at first. And again, to not know exactly how this is going to work. Sometimes, I think this is probably even going back to AI, frankly. I think this is going to be one of the things that's hardest in the day and age of AI, is that we want to know what is the answer. We don't want to be an adventurer and figure it out ourselves. Why would we figure it out ourselves if we could just ask the Google or Claude or whoever, right? What is the answer? And I just want to encourage you to resist that. Resist the need to know before you're doing something. We have to be a little bit brave and experiment sometimes. And it is absolutely okay to try something and it fails. I cannot tell you how many florists that I know, real deal floral educators, right, who do this, that is what they do. They teach. They are constantly experimenting. They don't go, you know what? I am only doing tried and true stuff here. I only teach what we done been teaching forever. That's not interesting to you or to me, right? We want to see a new technique, something different. And the only way that happens is through trying things and experimenting. So whether you're super busy this summer or it's a little bit of a slower season for you, make this your year of experimenting. Try something new. Try a flower you haven't tried before for boutonnieres and corsages and see what you think. It doesn't mean throw it out to the customer and see what happens. Try it in your studio. I'm going to give this example before I sign off here. So with that hydration chamber, which I keep saying the word, so let me be specific on what that means for anybody who doesn't know. Basically what we're doing is we're creating a moist container for the flowers so that they can drink from the outside of their petals in. And what it entails is some sort of a sealable container. It could be a takeout food container. It could be a Tupperware. It could be a bag. And we have some sort of a water source that is like a wet paper towel. You could even use a wet towel, frankly. But we need something that is nice and wet to provide the moisture inside the bag or inside the container. You spray your arrangement, you spray your flowers with water We're not putting finishing touch or anything like that on it. We're just putting it in water. We're just having the water sprayed, putting it in the hydration chamber, paper towels on the bottom. Sometimes paper towels on the top as well. Depends on what it is, depends on how long we're trying to keep it. But what I found is even just paper towels on the bottom does quite a good job once we've sealed up this container of creating that hydration chamber. So what it is doing is helping to super hydrate your flowers, and they last longer out of water this way. So I have a friend who has been helping me make boutonnieres for many, many years now. And when we started doing this hydration chamber, I mean, we just have fun with it, right? It's like, wow, look how long these last. They're so fun. So one day she made a boutonniere of chamomile. Chamomile. If you have ever used a chamomile in your arrangements, you know it wants to wilt very quickly. And even sometimes some of them look great, and then there's other ones that are wilty. So you kind of really need to have a discerning eye when you're using chamomile. Anyway, she made a little boutonniere with chamomile. We put it in the hydration chamber. And it was probably in there for at least 2 days, maybe even 3 days, because I kind of forgot about it. And when I saw it on the counter, again, on the counter, not in the cooler, it was just on the counter in this little hydration chamber. When I took it out, I just giggled. I went, oh my gosh, Courtney. Courtney with this, chamomile boutonniere. And then meanwhile, when I just left it on the counter, it lasted for 2 days. I'm not kidding you. I wish I could say I'm lying. I'm just lying, telling you a crazy story. No. It lasted for 2 days. Now, does that mean that chamomile is going to last for you for 2 days if you put it in a hydration chamber? No, right? We need to experiment, try things. Maybe we had especially fresh chamomile that week. I don't know. I do not know how it worked. But it blew my mind. Sold me on the hydration chamber way more than I already was sold on it because we were using it already. So again, this is just to say experimenting is part of your job. Let your employees experiment too, right? Let them try something new, because you might find that you have increased confidence. Even if it's just like, oh, yep, that chamomile thing, that failed, that didn't work. Try it and see, so that you have your own knowledge base. We don't want to just be trusting AI, trusting Google, and trusting other people when we could do a little bit of this work ourselves, all right? So get out there, have some fun, do some experimenting. Don't feel locked in to doing the AI stuff, but also know that it's a conversation, not just a clause in your contract. If you missed any of my previous Q&As, you can go on back and watch them. And if you have a question for me, let me know. Best way to ask a question, honestly, is to become a member of my Patreon community. Every week I'm posting in advance the link for the live chat, and you can ask questions right there, and you can also send me private messages. So if there's anything you want me to address, Patreon people, you get top priority. And it's a great way to also just support the work that I do. You can join at any level. There's even free membership if you just want to join, but it's not in your budget right now to be like a paying member. So keep doing beautiful work throughout this week. It's a beautiful day here. My son's graduating from 8th grade today, so that's what's on my agenda. Very excited. I'm on the decorating committee, so wish me luck. I have to be a team player and take direction, so it will be a challenge, but I am up for it because that's what good moms do, right? Take direction. Keep doing beautiful work in your business. Have a great day, and I will talk to you next week for live Q&A. Thanks for being here.